Next up, we have Graham Richard. Graham has been the mayor of Fort Wayne, Indiana. He has been an energy investor. He has been a state senator, and now he is running the Advanced Energy Economy. Please welcome Graham Richard.
Introduction and a chance to share a few words with you about the most incredible prosperity agenda that I've certainly seen in my lifetime. And that's a vision of a world that runs on clean, secure, affordable energy. I'm indebted to our hosts today, and I also want to celebrate the fact that a number of our board members have been active in our presentation here today. Tom Steyer, you're going to hear from, as you heard yesterday, later. Tom is a co-founder of the Advanced Energy Economy, and he also has Ted White, one of our board members, with us, very active here in Colorado as an environmentalist and a lawyer. Ted, thank you for your leadership. Bill Ritter, I don't know if Bill's in the house, but Bill is a legend here in the state of Colorado. We work with his Center for the New Energy Economy, and Bill is also on our board. He's a senior fellow, and we're really partnered with him right now to figure out how we can get the greenhouse gas regulations implemented in the western states. We also, Reed Hunt was a panelist yesterday and as a board member. And then Susan Riley, who is the president of RES Americas, another great company based here in Colorado, gave a wonderful presentation yesterday on the future of wind, and we're delighted to have her as a board member as well. So if I might, first of all, let's encourage folks to come on in if you can. We appreciate you coming on in. If I might, I want to start with a story, if I could. Chip, this is something that you might appreciate since you've had some familiarity with our good friend Al Gore. So as a mayor in 2005, I had the delightful invitation from Rocky Anderson, the mayor of Salt Lake City, and from Robert Redford to be a part of what was the first 30 of us as mayors to come together in 2005. And that began the dialogue when there was no discussion at the national level on the Kyoto Protocol. It began the dialogue about what we could do in our cities or communities. Forrest Sawyer yesterday, very impassioned plea at the end of the presentation on the media yesterday, said, get involved at the state and local level. So as mayors, ultimately 1,000 of us by 2007, we were actually going back and creating sustainability plans, improving energy efficiency, generating momentum, doing collaborative buying plans. I remember Will Wynn, the mayor of Austin at the time, said, let's all sign up to buy plug-in hybrids and plug-in EVs to encourage the industry to innovate. And we did that, and we had thousands of vehicle purchases promised if that technology would come along. So here's the story. So Al Gore is making a presentation. This is before Inconvenient Truth. This is in 2005. And he's got this wonderful slideshow, all this data. I felt like I was getting an Apple data bath in beautiful graphics, and Al was impassioned and making his case. And at the end of it, the lights came up, and the mayors and others were asked to comment. And Robert Redford said to Al Gore, he said, but Al, where is the story? Meaning this was data, this was information, but there wasn't a narrative, there wasn't something that touched you. Today, the story is that we have a prosperity agenda ahead of us that wasn't there 10 years ago. Even Al Gore, in the recent magazine article, Rolling Stone, talked about the fact the pathway is there. So the question is, how do we scale fast enough to make a difference in terms of energy and climate? And so I want to talk about two incredible initiatives that, when taken together, give us the opportunity for robust state-based action with cities in state after state to have a prosperity agenda. First of all, what do we mean by advanced energy, and what does this agenda entail? We did a study commissioned by Navigant, which shows that when you take the low-carbon advanced energy companies, and that's wind and so it's all the renewables, but it's also energy efficiency. It's also new methods and processes. In fact, we produced this document of 40 technologies that help reduce the greenhouse gas emissions. These are existing technologies that work right now, right here, and every state can use them in their state implementation plan. It's a $1.1 trillion global market opportunity. It's growing at double-digit rates. That's larger than global pharmaceutical. In this country, it's $169 billion, and it grew at 19% last year. So when you approach my homeland of Fort Wayne and Indiana, and by the way, after this election, it might be entirely possible that every Midwestern state, with the exception of Minnesota, will have a Republican governor, Republican-controlled, at least one house, usually both, And so that gives those who are advocates for the high coal, high petroleum, high carbon industries a huge opportunity to leverage within their Republican caucuses in those legislatures. And we saw in Ohio. Tom Steyer mentioned this last year. Ohio reversed at the 11th hour, dark at night, very little public input, both their renewable portfolio standard and their energy efficiency standard. After 8 years of bipartisan effort, that's $3 billion of wind energy projects dead in Ohio. Now, AEE with our 23 state affiliates, we've got another story to tell. There were 70 pieces of legislation that we followed and tracked in these 23 states that we won on. An example of a different way is in North Carolina, where Ivan Erlob has a 20-year-old organization that's our partner there. And that North Carolina Sustainable Energy Association went out and tracked every single business in every single state rep and state senate district, showed exactly how many jobs were there, mobilized those individuals to call on the Republican-controlled, and ALEC had their plan. They tried to reverse the RPS in the state of North Carolina in 2013, and they were beaten back. The House Speaker, Tom Tillis, Republican, and Patrick McGrory, the governor who used to be the mayor of Charlotte, they stood up and said, no, we need to have market certainty. We're going to keep the RPS. We're going to, on a bipartisan basis, say this is good for the state of North Carolina. So we can win this argument, but in some cases, you can't win the argument from an environmental point of view. It has to be businesses coming together. United we stand, divided we fall. Ron Resch is here. You're going to hear him talk about solar. We work closely with WEA and SEIA and all of the trade associations to build this collaborative partnership state by state. Now, two things that are happening. We've heard about Reg 111D, which is the greenhouse gas regulation. Incredible opportunity for us to get a reduction as the coal power plants go down, a reduction in greenhouse gases. But there has to be a state plan. Every state has to come up with an implementation plan. And in addition to that, we've got to have those plans engage citizens, the legislature, the governor's office, and the PUC. I'm going to ask you a question. Here's a quiz. There are 198 people in this country, 11 elected PUCs, Arizona's electing theirs right now, that control $100 billion a year of investment in states across the country. How many of you know a name of a PUC commissioner in your state and could call and talk with them? Got a few. Good, good, good. We had two things happening right now, critical. Never happened in at least my lifetime. I'm a hydro developer, small-scale hydro, cogeneration, ran for lieutenant governor on new energy for Indiana, got beat. The same year Jimmy Carter was defeated, unfortunately. Same year Danny Quayle got elected from Indiana. So the issue here is, how do we take these two initiatives? The second initiative is technology changes in the electric utility system. So let's take New York, for example. AEE brought together, we got lots of great partners. RMI has a contract to do work in this project. Audrey Zibelman, the new chair of the PSC, Richard Kaufman, with us, brought together the CEOs of all the regulated electric utilities in the state of New York and 10 of our advanced energy companies. And they range from big companies like Verizon or Microsoft or General Electric to earlier stage companies like Opower or Internoc. Innovative companies coming together with those CEOs, having a conversation. This wasn't a litigation. It wasn't a regulatory proceeding. It was just, what could the new model for electric power regulation look like? We haven't really changed it substantially over the last 100 years. And so there's a docket process there which could revolutionize the way in which the rate of return and the incentives for the electric utilities. 80% of all electric power in this country is through a regulated electric utility. And if we don't get a different business model, help those CEOs change the way they're thinking about it, we will continue to have the system of the past instead of the system of the future. So these two things, the opportunity to get compliance on the greenhouse gas regs and the transformation nature. So we spend a lot of time working with these public utility commissioners. We go out and engage in small group sessions, interactive discussions, led by the PUC commission members themselves, on how do you integrate renewables into the grid? How do you do distributed power, and how do you do microgrids, and how do you create a strong, resilient grid that can withstand the hurricanes that we had on the East Coast. So this is a different way of thinking about the messaging and the action that we need. So in conclusion, what is it that I would ask you to do? What's my ask? If you have companies in your communities, your state, we'd love to have them join the 1,000 companies that are already part of the advanced energy economy movement. We offer incredible tools. We can track, with Bill Ritter's help, 6,000 pieces of legislation. Check us out, aee.net, through our Power Suite. 6,000 pieces of legislation going on in every state. We're now bringing up millions of records in the dockets or the proceedings in each of those PUCs, shedding some sunlight on a process that has been very cozy between the regulated and the regulators, giving our companies tools to be able to fight the fight in their state for advanced, clean, affordable, secure energy. So tell those companies to get involved. You yourself, check out your Public Utility Commission members. Watch, see what's happening. Go to the state hearings that will be held on the Reg 111D, the compliance for the greenhouse gas regulations. These two initiatives, powerful opportunity to create businesses that can grow and prosper and help us have a world where secure, clean, affordable energy is an engine of economic growth. Thank you. I think we have a few minutes for questions. Questions or comments?
Thanks a lot. I'm a member of AEE in Ohio, and it was a hard fight. And we appreciate the help. AEE was the primary organizer and coordinator and did a lot. Thank you.
Help me with your name. We've met before.
Yeah, Jeff Greenfield, Third Ton Solar.
Third Ton Solar. Thank you. Great.
So unfortunately, we lost, as you said, at the 11th hour, midnight session, back room, and it was a big shame. And AEE built a huge coalition, efficiency, renewables, clean tech, and we thought that we had the facts on our side. We thought that we had the polling on our side. But unfortunately, the fight was about campaign funding and about raising money for re-election. And the legislature and the governor in our state made the wrong move. And I'm curious if you guys are coordinating on a bigger picture besides the policy piece on the campaign funding piece that Alex so well does.
Tom Steyer will be on a panel, and we'll talk about his work to have political action. Let me just share my experience as a state senator in Indiana. Back when I was first elected at age 26, I raised about $15,000, all from friends and relatives. Today, it's very different. So in Indiana, the president pro tem raises all the money, or most of it, and gives it back to the caucus. The same thing with the speaker. So in Indiana, I called some friends of mine and I said, why are you getting rid of Energize Indiana? What the heck's going on? And an insider said to me, Graham, it's a caucus bind, which means you will vote this way or you will not get a committee chairmanship, you will not get campaign contributions. And what was really happening was all of the high carbon interests who had been contributors. Think back to the tobacco issue years ago. Everybody was for having some regulation on public smoking in public places. But the campaign contributions, and so that happened in Ohio. We had a state senator in Ohio who was for the AEE position. And at the last minute, he told Ted Ford, I can't even vote for the bill. I can't even vote to support because my caucus has said if I don't, I get no campaign contributions, my committee chairmanships, my seniority, all out the door. So he actually had to go against his public support to continue the good policies that were creating jobs in Ohio. That's called clout. That's power. And what happens when there's an intensity of a battle, and it looks like solar and wind, they were kind of treated by the high carbon industry, oh, that's not such a big deal. You only have a little bit of the, well, all of a sudden we're getting momentum. When you have 400 employees hired a month by one of our member companies, Solar City, you all of a sudden have got an engine of economic growth going. And so if you run the numbers out over a period of time, they're going, oh, wow. So we're going to have to find new ways to engage in this fight because it isn't about data. 70% of the voters supported in Ohio keeping clean energy policies. It's not about data and facts. It's about impact, cloud. I think I got a little wound up on that one question. I think I see the please end sign. Thank you very much.
Hey, Graham. Hey, Graham. I got a question for you. Hi, Mike Eckhart with Citi, previously ACOR. Now, my credibility for this question is because my father's family is from Indiana,
And you have a Purdue degree.
and I have a Purdue degree myself, and my cousins still live in Bremen off Route 6. And so with that said, my cousins get very angry with me when I come to see them and I talk about solar energy. They get furious, and I'll share their logic, or they're not their logic, but what's behind it. By my saying solar in the future, they hear that I'm putting down everything that made America great, everything that led up to life as it is, the Industrial Revolution, the U.S. Constitution, our way of government, PUCs, the utilities. One of my cousins works for the utility and runs a team that clips all the trees under the power lines. They think this is what made America great. And I'll leave you with this. They said something once that really stuck with me. One of them said, "Your ideas don't trump my beliefs." Right? Your ideas don't trump my beliefs. That was so powerful to me. And I realized then it's about building trust in our ideas so that our ideas become their beliefs. So talk about that, the issue of trust and building trust.
Yeah, part of the challenge we have is that there will be some people whose belief system will not face reality. So I do think you can think yourself into a new way of acting, and you can act yourself into a new way of thinking. I would submit that when the policies in Indiana get to the point where we are able, and I think there's a chance of getting that done, to encourage the advanced energy economy, all of a sudden they're going to see that what they believe is a monopoly approach, meaning electric utility that is regulated but provides their employment. When they begin to see the robust economic growth in terms of solar installers, and their neighbors put rooftop solar up, and there's a new business model that continues to provide value for the shareholder and that company. Example, the mayor of Indianapolis, Republican, big time, has set a goal to have the first big city, it's 11th in size of the country, the first big city with an all-electric plug-in system. So that's new business for the electric utility. Pose it this way. If an electric utility could by 2030 get 50% of the petroleum-based transportation revenue that is revenue to them, that changes the model to abundance and prosperity away from scarcity. We're beginning to see electric utilities embrace that idea if the regulators will encourage that as a permissible activity of a utility. Lots of issues around that, lots of discussion, but it will happen, probably not first in Indiana, but it will happen in many other states where they're going to start to say, as they did in Georgia, where we heard this example used yesterday, the Georgia Tea Party, working with the chair of the Utility Commission there, created the Green Tea Party, and it was about an issue of, hey, I want to have choices. I want to have fairness. I don't want to have a mandate that says I can only buy my power through the electric utility. So we're in this incredible opportunity, and I think the best sales position is going to be around jobs and economic growth. Thank you very much.